Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having us.
How did Briefcase Blues get started?
We started actually because a friend of mine who started a lip sync act for nightclubs in 1983, actually New Year's Eve 82. And I went to go see one of these lip sync acts where they were doing the Blues Brothers to pre-recorded music. I took one look at him and said, I can do that better than the other guy. So we did, and I took over his job, and for about 3 months we did it as a lip sync act with this other fellow named Jesse Sherman. So a good friend of mine ran into us and saw it and said, what you really need to do is do that with a live band. You need to do it live. Don't fake it to a recording. And we tried that for one weekend. I loved it. We put a band together, a short story, and I loved it. And we played for a bar, and he hated it, so he backed out. I put it down in the paper, and a fellow named Lee Schwing came along, and he was a harmonica player who fit the mold of Elwood, tall, leggy, white guy. And he stayed on with the band for 33 years.
33 years, that's a long time. I mean, is it still the original band?
Well, you know what? You say original band like the four members of the Kinks, Ray Davies and his brother and stuff like that. It ain't like that kind of band. What we do is we play covers, which is exactly what the Blues Brothers did. They were a cover band. Right. And we do the same covers that they did. It's different arrangements of the songs that make them special. So actually having band members who are like contributors and writers and stuff, we don't have that kind of a band. But over the course of 33 years, I've cultivated horn players, keyboard players, bass players, guitar players, drummers. I know who I can work with, and I don't know who's not worth anything. And so, yes, the band has been the same, but different every few years.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So it's the same singer since the beginning?
Yeah, that would be me. But the guy who did Elwood, he lasted for 33 years up until 2016. And then he bowed out for health reasons. And I've been the same. We don't have backup singers. Our band is large. It's 10 pieces, but it's very simple. It's bass, guitar, drums, and keyboards, and 4 horns. Right. And it's Jake and Owen. That's pretty much it. People say, "Oh, how are we going to mic up all this huge band?" Most of the instruments are direct. Half the instruments are direct input to the board, and the rest of them are all horns and 2 vocals. So we're a large band of simple needs.
Simple needs is always nice because now everything was going on so complicated with everything.
Who are you?
Oh man, sorry to be Johnny lately.
Let me see let me see that. Oh yeah, that's Morgan.
Yeah, it's me. I look just like this guy over here. This guy over here, Elwood.
Yeah, we get used to the idea that when he's on stage, he is the spitting image. He is Elwood. When he's not on stage, he looks like Jeff Bridges from The Big Lebowski. That's all there's to him.
Wait! I can do that one too. Look, gotta get all the hair in the face.
There you go.
I abide.
The dude abides. What else does he say?
I can't remember, but the dude abides is the best.
Another one that most people know is what is it? I'm the dude. That's what you call me.
Oh, there you go, man.
I mean, that's an amazing movie. I love that movie.
Well, it gives you an opportunity to hear Kenny Loggins and the fifth edition, or what was the band he was in? When I just dropped in to see what my condition was in.
No, that was Kenny Rogers in the 5th edition.
But that was the band behind him. I thought it was the
right. Yeah, it was the 5th edition. I want to say I got that on vinyl.
Cool. Are you gonna play it on this? Are you gonna play it on this interview?
I don't have the money for the rights for that.
All right, hey, I heard a little bit about the history of the band. That's one of the coolest things about Briefcase Blues.
I'm going to write. I told myself when I got up this morning, I'm going to write an actual timeline, year by year, what happened, even if it was nothing special. Because
35 years, it's got to be something like a book thick of memories and stories.
No, it'd be 35 years, and I'd have to sit there and try to remember what happened that year. So hopefully it won't be a book because I don't want to remember that much.
So, what was the first time y'all first heard of the Blues Brothers?
Morgan, you take this one.
Well, it was in late high school for me, and I had an existence much like Wayne's World, where I had a basement all rigged out where my friends and I could hang out. And we watched Saturday Night Live. And I remember seeing the debut of the Blues Brothers and thinking, man, that's pretty cool. And I started playing the harmonica at that moment. And also, that was where I first saw Willie Nelson. I remember Jimmy Carter was talking about him, and I thought, who is this guy? And he showed up on Saturday Night Live one night playing Georgia. So it's another big impact, and planted a seed in the back of my mind that I wanted to move to Texas sometime. I grew up in Baltimore. But
hey, Morgan, I never asked you this, but why did you decide Texas was the place to go?
Well, actually, the FBI decided for me.
That's what I thought.
I opened my orders, and it said Dallas Division. And I said, well, all right, that's where Willie Nelson lives. Or not lives, but was from anyway. At that point, he had moved to Austin. And it was... I was very glad to be sent in this direction, and I got to stay in this direction for a long time.
Great turn of events.
Yeah, it was great. Great for two reasons. Great to get to know a lot of guys in Willie Nelson's band, but also great to eventually be able to play Elwood with Briefcase Blues.
Mine's a little sleazier than that pure Boy Scout story, which was completely true.
Sounds like a John Belushi story.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, Blues Brothers came out in, I believe it was June of 1980. Okay. In June of 1980, I was getting my divorce finalized, my first divorce. And so I started dating around October. In fact, I started dating October 31st on Halloween because for heaven's sake, I was 21 years old and I'd just gotten out of a divorce. I mean, you're supposed to be starting life at that point. Anyway, so I started dating, and for a date night movie, I'd take chicks out to see the Blues Brothers, mostly because there was dollar theaters at the time. It went from mainstream theater to dollar theaters like within 3 months. And so while I was taking them out, we'd go see the Blues Brothers, and they would always like it. And I saw it, and I heard the music, and I liked it. And then I went back to hear the albums after the fact because I didn't watch Saturday Night Live at all.
Right.
I'd catch it once in a while, but I did not see the Blues Brothers. I'd seen Tim Curry and Meat Loaf on there. I saw Devo on Saturday Night Live, but I never saw the Blues Brothers. But and nothing really drove me because I wasn't really a theatrical type or a singer or yearning to be in a band. But I saw the movie, and it left a seed in my head. And of course, 2 years later, I worked on a project with this guy for Halloween, who was a tall, lanky guy who eventually became this lip sync guy, Jesse Sherman. And hello, Jesse, in case you ever get to see this. And we did this lip sync act at a club where there was 15 cents a pop. It was drink and drown night is what they used to call it. So everybody in the audience was a young yuppie in three-piece suits and these print dresses, drinking their brains out and yelling and cheering for two guys up there, moving their mouth like that. And when we did it, we started going around to other clubs is what we did. And we convinced them it was a good idea. So we got hired. We'd be hired for $100 a piece and a mug of beer. And since he didn't drink, I got 2 mugs of beer. But eventually I ran across a very good friend. I'll mention his name, Rick Brame, down in Houston now, who is a dance instructor. And he said, let me bring you over to a friend of mine. And that he introduced me to somebody named Dale Riley, who was a dance instructor in Irving. And he just sat down and looked at the stuff we'd been doing, a few videos and pictures. And he said, you need to do this with a real live band. You don't need to do this with, it's like doing air guitar. You're not going to really learn guitar playing air guitar.
Right.
So I put together a band, and I can still bring them up to Scott Geis and a bunch of guys out in the Colony. And they learned more or less how the songs went. And we went out and played a place called PK's Pub in the Colony. And I think it's long gone now. But in the process of playing these few songs with like a 6-piece band, one sax, and people just went nuts. They tore the bar apart. And we did a 2-nighter, a Friday, Saturday. I still have the flyer for it. I'll get it to you. Insert it here. But he did not like the bar scene. He was a real young kid and just was not into drinking and girls and stuff like that. And so he said, I quit. And I put an ad in the paper, and that's where I found Lee Schwing, recent transplant from the Midwest, who had played harmonica for a while. And we met. We didn't like each other personally, but he called me over a couple nights after we met, and he shaved off his mustache and his beard and cut his hair short. I brought my hat and my sunglasses, and he clapped them on, put them on, and did like this with a hat, picked up a harp, went, and says, what do you think? And I said, I think you're hired. And so we went forward with that. And our first live gig was with Briefcase Blues, as we were known for a couple decades, on September 24th, 1983. And we got paid at a festival to play. And we got paid in free pizza and beer.
Do you remember the name of the festival?
Yeah, September Fest, 1983.
September Fest.
Yeah, it was the Knox Street September Fest.
I remember there was not a Halloween, 4th of July, like live event that I got to see, Casey and the Sunshine Band out in Garland, kind of like in Times Square, the Garland Square,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like that place, like a small square area type thing.
Actually, we played we opened for Kool and the Gang out there in Garland, Star Spangled Fourth. They ran it up to a few years ago and then discontinued it. But the Knox Street Septemberfest was a 2-lane street, Knox Street, that ran between 75 and the edge of Highland Park going west. And it was just a street festival. And they picked out a parking lot to put a stage in. And that's where we played.
So it's kind of like the Deep Elm Arts Festival. So they
Something
block
like
off
that.
the streets, and at one end's a stage, other end food and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
they didn't specify any food booths or anything like that at the Septemberfest. They just had the restaurants that were open. You know, it was very loosely put together, but they barricaded off the side streets.
Oh, okay.
And they had some curio shops and stuff. It was really low key, low tech. It was 1983.
Times were way different back then.
Mm-hmm.
So
We had
you're the-
MTV.
Uh-huh.
We had MTV, and that's about it.
Pretty
for
much when
entertainment.
it came to music lovers.
Mm-hmm. Well, I loved MTV.
You said something about Tim Curry and Meatloaf earlier. I saw in your bio that you did the Rocky Horror Picture Show in the Dallas
Yeah.
Convention Center.
Okay,
How'd
that goes.
Like,
that
can you
goes-
explain that?
That goes back a ways. It was 1977. I was going to Richland College, and I had met a girl who was part of a circle of friends of ours who had just moved here from D.C., Washington, and she just sat down one afternoon and just told us a story about a movie that she had seen, in Washington, D.C. at a midnight movie called Rocky Horror Picture Show. And she described it scene by scene, minute by minute, all the way through the movie. We're all sitting there going like, wow, what the hell? That must be a hell of a movie. Not a week later, I saw that they're advertising it in our paper, the Dallas Morning News, and said it was going to be a midnight movie at the Highland Park Village Theater. I called her up and I said, we're going. She said, you're shitting me. And I said, no, I shit you not. It's going to be this Friday night. So I went to the Highland Park Village Theater with about 6 other people total in the entire audience and watched it on the big screen. I was hooked. I was totally hooked. Within a couple of months, I weighed 138 pounds, and I went to dressed as Riff Raff, and we developed some costume characters. It was a slow evolution, but I became the Riff Raff at Highland Park Village Theater. The guy paid me money to take tickets as Richard O'Brien's character. And eventually we tried doing it as a live play. And that's a whole nother story. But in the process of trying to get to that point where we were putting this musical on in Dallas as a live musical, I was introduced to Meatloaf. And as it turns out, Meatloaf, MLA Day, graduated high school with my brother in 1965 here in Dallas. And so I met him. He was a nice guy, and went on. And eventually, the fancy wore off.
Right.
So, but it's a great musical. And Morgan and I did get to meet Barry Bostwick.
Barry Bostwick?
In fact, I'll send you a picture of that too.
Oh yeah, he was at that Marvelous Stan Lee thing, wasn't he?
No, I don't know if he was there, but I do know that he was at the comic show in Richardson the June before that happened.
Oh, okay. That's the one I met y'all at, right?
Yeah, it was with Carr was there. We didn't perform, but we just came, walked around. That's where we met Judge Reinhold as well.
Yeah, I got a question about that later.
Okay.
But Morgan, you said you were from Baltimore.
Yeah,
I actually used
born
to
and
live
raised.
up there, right
that's
around the
cool.
Frederick, Carroll County area.
Oh, it's beautiful out there. I grew up in the city, but yeah, out there where you're talking about, just great countryside.
It just wasn't working for me. I just got into nothing but trouble out there,
That's
so I had to
funny.
come back here.
From what I heard, so did he.
Yeah.
That's why they sent him out here.
Yeah. Got rid of their trouble problems. Well, for a little while anyway. Doesn't look too good lately, but it was great. Great place to grow up. I've got some great memories. I got great downtown area, Harbor Place, a lot of amazing history. But yeah, after college, it was kind of time to move on. I spent some time in DC. Worked at FBI headquarters for a few years, and then got sent down here to Texas, and can't think of any place I'd rather be.
So, what made you decide to be an FBI agent?
You'll laugh about this. G. Gordon Liddy's autobiography had a lot to do with it. Will, by G. Gordon Liddy. It's a fascinating book, and I was reading some Mickey Spillane novels at the time, and I was in architecture school at University of Maryland. And I was frustrated. I knew in the back of my mind that a career in architecture would not fuel an appetite for adventure. Plus, I had a lot of older architects and reminded me there are a lot of starving architects out there. I was thrilled to get a degree in architecture, to actually go through that education, because I got kind of an art side to me, but I was also glad that I made that transition. I read an article about the FBI special agent in charge in Baltimore, and his story was pretty fascinating. And then I saw that you don't have to be a lawyer or an accountant to become an FBI agent. That any 4-year degree, you can get in. after being checked out pretty thoroughly. I don't know how they missed the important things when they checked me out, but miraculously, I got hired on and started.
I would guess that they learned a long time ago in the recruitment process that you don't sweat the small stuff in some other.
Plus, they didn't have the polygraph back then.
They didn't have a polygraph?
They didn't use it. Well, they had it, but it was in its infancy, and they didn't. But I didn't have anything to hide. Let it be public knowledge. I had nothing to hide. So anyhow, that's what got me into the FBI. But and it was great career, very rewarding. I had a specialty as a bomb technician, working terrorist cases and bombing stuff. Got trained as a bomb technician, and so it was interesting. They liked my architecture background and how it related. The building got taken down, that I'd have a little insight to what part of the building went where. So it worked out really well. I was able to retire at 52 and have a little son, and it's worked out very well. I'm full-time daddy now, full-time Mr. Mom, and it was a great way to shift gears. I love the FBI career, but I love what I'm doing now, and love playing with Briefcase Blues. And I tell you, if you had said back when I was a kid in the basement looking at Saturday Night Live and seeing Elwood, Dan Ackroyd playing his harmonica, if you told me then that I would be playing with some world-class musicians doing the same music and impersonating old Dan, I wouldn't have believed it. But it's been a great thing. It came along just at exactly the same time as my son did, a little over 4 years ago. And it is such an extraordinary privilege to be playing with musicians that are just absolute professionals. They've been playing this music for many years. Many of them have been with Briefcase Blues for well over 10, 15 years. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jay. Great guys, but amazing musicians. In addition to the fact that Jay is an amazing vocalist. He portrays Jake better than any I've seen. And he's just a natural band leader too. He's got a lot of energy, and he's willing to put on a fat suit and sweat like crazy to a show. That's quite a sacrifice.
It's a valid form of exercise.
It is. I can imagine the amount of sweat, because even without all that padding on me, it's brutal. You get dancing in Soul Man and that sort of thing. It takes a lot out of you. And if you're doing that and singing, you got to pace yourself. You can't be doing the crazy dancing, be out of breath when you got to hit the microphone. And Jay balances that. And the only way you get good at that is 30 years of experience, which he has had, and the years of experience which his band.
And some members of the band have been with me over 30 years. Notably, Glenn Rothstein on tenor sax. We've been friends for probably since the band started. And there are people that used to be in the band as well that are no longer in the band, that live in other parts of the country. They're still close friends, like Dave Johnson. He was our trumpet player for so many years, up until about the early 90s, actually. And then he moved to Oklahoma, and we have a sax player named Mark Rubisky in Louisiana, Gulfport, I think, and we stay in touch. And it's funny because usually peripheral guys. We have a keyboard player named Andy Upchurch, who lives down in Houston. He was a regular player for us on a Hammond B3 or Chord CX3. What I've liked about it especially is that we get to build relationships and make friends with people that you otherwise would never have met. And that's on many levels.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, it's always nice when music can bring people together and keep them together.
Yeah. And it's a tight-knit family, which is really,
right.
really
When
great.
you can find that right thing to where everybody just melds together and it ends up just being fun playing.
And also some of the fans that we've had over the years as well. I can name one named Doyle Bagwell. He was a neighbor of Lee's back in the day. We knew him when he was a bachelor. We knew him when he met his wife to be, that she would come out. She'd write, "Please play Soul Man" on a napkin anywhere we were playing, throw it up on the stage. We knew them when they got married. We played for their wedding. And afterwards, I got together with him some 20 years later and gave back the 45 record, a Bruce Springsteen 45 record she'd given us after she passed away. So we've been part of people's lives sometimes through a large chunk of their life.
Back to when you were talking about having all that energy going on stage, I actually knew somebody that had to actually go through something like that. He foolishly downed like 3 Red Bulls, then ran on stage and was just running around the stage. And then by the second song, he was so worn out. The rest of his set, he was pretty much facing the facing the stage.
Face down on the stage.
No, just kind of like
Yeah.
he sit up and just bend back
You
over.
Definitely have to pace yourself. Definitely.
That's a rookie.
That was the first thing that popped into my mind when you said that.
A lot of images in their mind of rock stars and their excesses, and they believe that that's what makes a good performer and makes a good performance, but it doesn't. It detracts. And you got to stay focused. You got to pace yourself. And those are the things I'm learning, being very new to the music situation, because I am not only the newcomer to the band, I'm the non-musician to the band. My life was not music. And I mean, although I was in a few bands and played harmonica, it was never a serious endeavor. Whereas the guys in Briefcase Blues, music has been everything for many years. So I learned from them. And yes, you've got to pace yourself. You've got to keep things in perspective and not let preconceptions lead you astray.
Actually, playing Jake or Elwood, it would be my opinion that it takes a lot of release, a lot of energy, but it takes a little bit of restraint too. And I think that's what we're talking about here.
How long did it take you to learn how to play harmonica?
It was little by little, and it started in high school, late high school, and then at college, University of Maryland. The cool thing about University of Maryland, probably a lot of universities, 40,000 people, and you have groups of people that get out, sit in the grass, play guitars and stuff like that. And there's a lot of music going on. So I'd have harmonicas in my pockets. And as I walked through campus, I'd see some post-hippie age guy that I could relate to would be sitting playing guitar, and I'd play the harmonica. And because also during that time, I did wear out a cassette tape of Briefcase Blues. And so, yeah, that's how I started playing harmonica. And there were some blues bands in and around my college town, College Park, Maryland. And so I got to play a little here and there. Later on down the line, I was in a band full of, while I was still in the FBI, I was in a band full of law enforcement related guys that played cowboy type music, Texas related music. And there's a bunch of us. So I played a little bit more then. And I was never an absolute devotee of the music that I should have been, maybe. There are a lot of harmonica players that are a whole lot better than I'm, especially at blues. I have tried to improve by playing at jams and things like that. But, you know, at blues jams in particular, there are old timers that really look at a guy that if you haven't paid the dues, and I hate to use that cliche, if you haven't spent hours tucked away in a room listening to old records, then you don't amount to much in the blues world. So that's a learning experience that, hey, you can't just wing it. You're not that great, and just keep trying to learn. I've never been in the mode to practice, spend a lot of time practicing, but now I do. I practice much more regularly, and I try to improve mostly at the songs we do. And there's a lot more room for improvement in the years to come. But that's the way Dan Ackroyd did it. When he started out, he says himself that he wasn't a great harmonica player, but he got better in the same way that John Belushi wasn't the finest singer at first, but he had it in him, and he got better. And what they put together was an amazing, phenomenal thing with these latent talents that were deep down in their hearts. And that's what we try to replicate. And that's what Briefcase Blues has been replicating for over 30 years. And that's why I'm glad to have the opportunity to hop in and join that. It's something I feel strongly about, and I have huge respect for the musicians and band members of Briefcase Blues. The band is set up just like the band, the Blues Brothers band, and it's hard to find that. It's hard to find a full horn section anymore, playing anywhere. It's hard to find a venue that can afford to pay 10 guys a decent wage to come in and play. So anytime we play it, it's a treat for people to see 10 guys replicating the Blues Brothers sound as closely as Briefcase Blues does.
And as a matter of fact, we achieved that in no uncertain terms. Aaron, I sent you something last night, a link to a song. The song's on Reverb Nation, and that one is Everybody. And what they were trying to do was for a dance game, Just Dance 4th edition. And they was the guy who's tasked with finding the music for that song, Everybody Needs Somebody to Love, the big concert scene from the movie, the first big concert scene. And he said, I didn't look at any Blues Brothers tribute bands. They were not going to use the original soundtrack because it would cost them way too much to sit for the rights. But they said, find somebody who's a tribute band, is what he was told. And he said he didn't look at any of the bands. He just listened. And he listened to them from LA, from Ohio, from Washington State, from you name it. And he said, when I got to you guys, I stopped and I said, that's it. I said, really? He said, yeah. And I said, can I get that in writing? He says, I'll give it to you in writing. You have a job. I want you to re-record the song, which is, and I consider that to be a high honor right there, is when somebody else is looking around and listening intently to what you're doing, and they see and hear us, and they say, that's what it's supposed to sound like. That's what two guys that aren't John and Dan should look and sound like.
You know, I played that game.
I hear Obama's daughters played it.
I had a little niece that just loves those Just Dance games, or did love them when they came out, and was always playing them on her Wii.
I have a Wii system that I never use. If you want it, I'll send it to you.
What a deal. Jump on that.
What's your favorite part of Blues Brothers?
The scene in the Chez Paul restaurant. From skidding to the sidewalk, the whole interface with the interaction with Alan Rubin. He's
a big Pee Wee Herman fan. Jay's a big
and Paul Rubin's being in there too. That was funny.
Women, how much for the women?
Yeah, I get people carping lines at me from the scenes from the movie, so I've gotten pretty good going like, sell them to me, sell me your children, you know.
I would tell you, one of my favorite scenes is when Elwood is making time with Twiggy in her convertible at the gas station that eventually blows up, because it shows a slick side to Elwood that you don't often see. And I think,
I don't remember the gas station blowing up.
I remember that one.
yeah, the gas was leaking out all over the place while they were there because they were filling up wrong or something. And then
Right.
Jake drops a cigarette as they leave. And I think, am I right about that movie, or did I take too much Benadryl this morning?
It sounds like something from a Robin Williams movie, but I honestly don't remember that scene. Okay?
Review the Twiggy scene, and I think you'll see the gas station blowing up.
Well, I remember he stole a handful of windshield wipers under his coat.
Right on.
That much I remember. But the whole interface, when Elwood starts off by saying, I should wash the dead bugs off your windshield. It's like real smooth Midwest.
Right.
He made up for it with the follow-up when he was hooking up, when he worked it out to hook up with her after this show.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then she's by Twiggy by a motel in 1979 going.
And he stood her up.
You see the characters of Jake and Elwood aren't very deeply drawn. But there's two things you can count on with them. First of all, they got the good intentions, and if it doesn't work out, they run away. That's two very standard MOs that they have.
Rules to live by.
Me and my wife got a little discussion. Thoughts on Blues Brothers 2000?
They brought together an amazing bunch of musicians, but the storyline was lacking. I think it tried too much to be what came natural in the first one. Just in the first one, a storyline evolved that, of course, was unbelievable, but was great in its delivery. And number two knew it had big shoes to fill and was able to attract awesome musicians, but the storyline was not as well put together. And I think a lot of people will agree. A lot of people prefer the first to the second, and for good reason.
Well, there's also what the gap was 18 years between the release of the first movie and the release of the second. And it's like trying to make fire with wet firewood.
And without pollution.
Yeah, and I was there to see a screening of it. And I knew a guy named Jeremy from Universal Pictures. And they had comment cards. This was in 1998. And I said, what do the comment cards say? And most of them say, where's Jake? Where's Jake? We miss Jake. Almost all of them. It's like they hadn't even seen the movie. They were looking for Jake to show up. And some of them didn't. Were so young when the movie came out, they had no idea that he died.
I could have swore they said it kind of clearly in the movie that he was dead.
Yeah, that's what happens with audiences.
Yeah, sometimes it just goes right over the head.
Well, they said the character was dead, and how many people are familiar with the whole story from, what you say, 16 years span between the two? Yeah, 16 years previously.
Yeah, I was surprised they made it when they did, because Dan Ackroyd was talking before it came out that they weren't going to do it unless he fit into the original suit. And as you can tell,
clearly that did not happen. That sounds like a hairy dog story, because there's he was nowhere near the physical shape he was in even 2 years after the original movie.
He worked hard to get some of it back, though. We got to give him credit. I think he did put some huge effort into getting back in the shape that was credible for the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was, and his character had to kind of take up the slack for all the fast talking that Jake was doing in the first movie.
Right.
So he became more lugubrious, he became more chatty, and it just felt out of context to me.
Yeah.
Out of character.
For those of us who had pretty much grown up with the first one and then the Blues Brothers from the beginning, it's something that's hard to see Elwood as the number one guy and doing all that talking.
I liked John Goodman too as the sort of the second character it's sort of like the lead character was gone, so sidekick became the lead, and then John Goodman was the new sidekick.
Right.
And like John, he had a good singing voice, not a great singing voice, but he played a good character, Mighty Mac McTeer.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right.
that was a cool turn. A lot of people don't know why they had the kid in the movie, J. Evan Bonifant, Buster Blues.
I wonder why they didn't get Jim Belushi to hop on.
I think they said he had other commitments, and there's a lot of stories behind that.
A lot of backstory there. Yeah.
Wasn't that around the According to Jim era?
No, I think it preceded it a little bit. Jim was making movies, but
yeah,
he was Jim. He wasn't John.
What was the last show y'all did?
Valentine's Day in Granbury. You're right.
Granbury, yes, it was in February this past year.
So that was like pretty much right before everything got shut down.
And we were scheduled to reappear there, and that's been postponed a couple of times, just like an appearance at Arlington Music Hall has had to be postponed. Hence the billboard back here of the new dates, and we're hoping that everybody that watches, that sees this podcast, will think about coming to see us there. We're coming back to the new Granbury Live in Granbury, down southwest of DFW, and that's going to be June 5th, Friday, June 5th. And then Arlington Music Hall, which is another awesome venue, larger venue in Arlington on June 11th. And so we've held off. We've tried to push performances back for a little bit for the sake of safety of the people that come to hear us, the safety of the band. And we are really excited. We feel a lot better with these new dates. We've held off, and those are going to be basically a couple of really great shows as we emerge from the restrictions of the pandemic. And
hopefully it just gets better and not worse.
So everybody make note of these dates up here: June 5th, June 11th. That's my shameless plug.
All plugs are shameless.
Especially when coming from that person.
Where's the shame? Shame of what?
I'm plugging because I want to plug. I don't care about the shame.
Yes. The biggest shame is that people haven't been able to get out and do what they did and be able to enjoy life the way they did. And they're going to get back to it.
Eventually it's going to get back to where it was. Hopefully. Let's just hope it gets back to where it was.
I sure hope so, not only for our sake, but also because I'm a big fan of rock music in general. My wife, Nancy, she's a concert goer deluxe. She did a lot of work in radio from 1980 on till the mid-90s. Rock radio stations like KZW, Q102, Eagle 97.1. And with her prompting, in the last 3 years, I've seen Alice Cooper 3 times. I've got pictures of her with Alice Cooper.
Jealous?
I've just gone and seen a whole lot of great bands and big concert venues, and it keeps the spirits up quite a lot.
So when you came up with the name Briefcase Blues, was that couldn't have been the first name you came up with? I mean, there had to be some other names.
No, and I've got a drawer with an old ledger in it. And I wrote out like 25 names that I wanted to name the band. And eventually I settled on Briefcase Blues Band.
Right.
As time went on, over a decade, I said we didn't need the word band. So because it's obvious we're a band. And then I just took the off. And so we just became Briefcase Blues. But we're in print, and we trademarked the band, or I trademarked the band 7-8 years ago. And they said you have to have something to show that you were actually in commerce, using the name in commerce in print, that you didn't print yourself. And the sample they had was a copy of D Magazine from October or May of '85. And they did a 1-page story on us. So that's the show's actually in print that we have existed since '85, and I've got stuff that goes back to '83. But
Wow.
we chose Briefcase Blues because of Briefcase Full of Blues. I didn't want to name it after that wordy of an album, So I just picked
Awesome
out
album.
Briefcase Blues.
Also, there's a big significance with the briefcase in the blues back when things were starting out, the bluesmen in Chicago and that sort of thing. They had to dress nice. You'd carry a briefcase so that the police wouldn't hassle you. They'd think you look straight, basically. And you weren't a hippie, you weren't, some degenerate musician. So so the briefcase had actually a place in the history of blues. And so those
Yes,
two lend it to being a really
I
great.
believe John Lee Hooker referred it to as the suit, the hat, the tie, and briefcases, the uniform.
The uniform, right on.
I did not know that about the briefcase.
Now there's a big
I literally
significance.
thought it was about the briefcase Elwood always carried.
Well, he always carried it for that reason.
It is, but there's a prehistory significance to it. So
in 35 years, there had to be like there's always other tribute bands. Like, how did y'all compare to the others besides staying together for 35 years?
Well, I'll put it this way. Other bands can do what they want. And a lot of people, pairs of guys in various types of bands have attempted the same thing. And it's not really much to attempt. We just do what John and Dan did, which is just put good music out there. We do the same arrangements that they did. It's the Blues Brothers, the horn arrangements and the band arrangements of songs, which are really just updates of songs that preceded 1978. The rock, reggae, all kinds of things. But other bands came to be, and some of them disappeared, some of them are still around. Mostly when people ask me, they say, what about other tribute bands? And I say, I'm sure they're out there, but I don't talk about them because they're not us. I don't see there's not a brotherhood because it really is a business. And if they get a gig that we don't get, we didn't get the gig, and that's counterproductive to me. So
I never thought of it like that. I mean, yeah, it really is a business, and if one tribute band got a gig, that's one less you can't have.
It's when we're being promoted by any one given entity or place, a lot of people will look at us and say, okay, so you're in Texas. Are there any in Florida? I say, yes, but I don't know. I'm not going to tell you about them because we could just as easily go to Florida and do it ourselves, and we have, for the record.
Right. You gotta sell yourself to different states. Of course,
Yeah.
Also, you want quality, and you want a good tribute band to come to the place. You don't want a crappy one.
Well, that's pretty subjective, but to be quite honest, we do have 35 years of playing these songs to where they're like second nature to us, which counts for a lot.
I mean, when it comes second nature, it just ends up like you're up there having fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what sets Briefcase Blues way above the rest in actuality, is that these guys have done it. It is second nature. They're top-notch musicians, and that allows, when you're synced in, then it leaves a lot of room for having a good time and performing and conveying that energy to the audience instead of worrying about what you're playing, how you're playing it when you come in for your solos.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you're up there having fun and jamming, and the audience is there just watching you have fun.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine, James Harvey, a stage tech actually. He said it best. He said, you're good at what you do, you have a ball doing it, and people have a ball watching you do it. That's the Holy Trinity right there.
And that's all you really need, because if you can get a band, like say it's not a tribute band, if you can get somebody to enjoy watching you, enjoy listening to you, and enjoy seeing you, then you're going to go somewhere in life. Like with Linkin Park, I saw them before they got big. And I looked at my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, they're going somewhere. they're going to be huge. A year later, they were on MTV.
Wow.
I could just tell by the vibes they were putting out, the show they put on one hell of a show.
Yeah, nobody wants to see a band that makes it look hard.
Or just doesn't want to be there.
It's better to be the one who makes it look easy.
Right. You said that you had met Judge Reinhold. We had talked about a phone call that you had him make.
Oh God. Yeah, this is one. And Morgan was with me. It was in June of 2016. We went to a comic show, a comic fest.
That's the one where Aaron was there, right? Aaron wasn't that Comic Fest the one that you attended?
Yeah, I was there passing out flyers for my, at that time, a different podcast.
Okay. Yeah, I remember seeing you now, oddly enough, but I couldn't remember where. But in any case, we were there at this thing, the Richardson Comic Show is what they called it. And there were a lot of demi-celebrities there. One of them was Judge Reinhold. And he was sitting there with all of his swag in the hallway of this convention center. And nobody was talking to him at the time, so we just walked over to say hi. And he immediately shook my hand and said, "Dude, I was just thinking about John Belushi the other day, man. You know, I was hanging out with him in LA, and man, when he died, things got really fast." And he just took off talking. And so we just stood there and talked with him for a while. And as the thing was winding down, we were out by a replica of the Bluesmobile out front. And we talked to him, and he said that he'd like to take a picture in front of it with us. I went back in to find him, and his booth was empty. I thought, okay, another missed opportunity. Oh, well. I walked out through the front doors to the patio, porch outside, the covered porch. And he came running out right behind me with all the swag over his shoulders, going, "Dudes, I completely spaced on this. I'm sorry, I almost forgot." And he dropped all his stuff on the sidewalk and came over and took pictures with us. I sent you that picture last night.
Okay.
Really
And he told a few stories about John too. So
Y'all met Stan Lee at another Comic-Con, right?
exactly the same year, 2016, that fellow, in fact, the people who hired us for the New Year's Eve, Marvelous Nerd Year's Eve at the Sheraton downtown, were people who saw us hanging out with Judge and Barry Bostwick as well, and a couple other people. And they said, "We'd like you to play for New Year's Eve. We're going to put together a cosplay comic show convention, and we're going to have, you know, a big band, two big bands playing, one for the VIP room and one for the general public, you know, for people that had tickets." And I thought to myself, Batman, Wonder Woman, and alcohol on New Year's Eve, what could possibly go wrong? So I said, it's right up our alley. And so we got hired and booked. And I was on my way to sound check the day of the show. Mind you, I was wearing a pair of checkered Vans because they were the only clean tennis shoes I had at the moment. A black T-shirt like this, a sport coat, and jeans, and my credentials around my neck.
Right.
On the way in there, I walked up to Judge Reinhold. He was there. That's the second time. And I walked over to him, and I said, shook his hand. I went, "Hey, Judge, nice to see you again." And he's shaking my hand, and he goes, Yeah. Where have I seen you before? I went, Richardson Comic Show last June. And I said, "Oh, yeah, up in Richardson at Civic Center." I said, "Yeah." And he's still shaking my hand. And he's going, "I can't place you." And finally, I just rolled my eyes and I said, "Dude, I was dressed as Jake Blues." And he just fell out. He said, "I never would have made it. I never would guess that you were Jake Blues." And I said, "Well, it's a pretty heavy disguise." So, and the phone call was to my wife, because I said, my wife, Nancy, I love her so much. She says, "I never get to see you with these people, celebrities." There was a moment when I actually met the governor, Ann Richards, and she was sitting out in the car, my wife. And she said, "What took you so long to get back in the car?" I said, "I was just saying hi to Governor Ann Richards. She was going, why didn't you take me in there to meet her?" So I was bound and determined if I met a celebrity, I was going to go ahead and call Nancy and let him talk to her. And I asked Judge, I said, "Would you mind saying hi to my wife? She's really an uber geek freak over everything you've done on camera." And he says, "Sure." So I took the phone and I dialed the number to Nancy and I put it on FaceTime. It was just inspired. Rather than make a phone call, I said, "Why don't they let her see who she's talking to?"
Right.
And I handed him the phone, and he's holding it like this at the desk, and he goes, "What do you want me to say?" And I said, "Her name's Nancy. Say hello and just wing it from there. It's a phone call. Just say hi." So she picks up the phone, FaceTime. She's buying groceries in a store. And she turns it on, and because he sees it's me calling.
Right.
And so she picks it up and she goes, "Hi, Snoopsy Poo," or something to that effect. And the face pops up on her screen. On her, it's Judge Reinhold going, "Hi, Nancy," like that. She lost it. She freaked out. There was nobody on the aisle. She wanted to run up to a stranger and go, "Look who I'm talking to." And the funny thing was, after the call was over, Judge almost fell out of his chair laughing. I was laughing that way. And his wife, Amy, was looking at him was like, "You guys are a couple of idiots." But Nancy got to meet him the next day after the show. So it was all good. Judge is a real nice fellow.
Speaking of meeting celebrities, did you get to meet Dan Ackroyd or anybody else from the Blues Brothers band?
No, there's some legalities involved. Some people want to chase Dan down and get his autograph and make buds with him and stuff like that. We've had some problems with them as an entity, and not to get into it too far, but they sometimes claim that they have ownership of everything about the Blues Brothers, the look, the suits, everything. None of that stuff is true. I don't think Judy Pisano, John's widow, likes anybody else doing the Blues Brothers for whatever reasons. But that was one of the reasons we had to trademark our band, because Blues Brothers is a trademark, not a copyright.
Right.
And there's just so much unbalanced acrimony back and forth that, if he took out the time to just, say, be where we were and say hi, that'd be great. But I sent 4 press kits to the guy over the course of 10 years, and I never heard anything back from him. So,
what about members of the band?
Members of the band I have met. I met Lou Maraney, when I first started the band in '83, and I was invited up to go see him play in Denton at a place called Benny's on Hickory Street. And I got introduced to him, Lou, after about a 2-hour show. And I walked up and told him what I was trying to do with this band, this Briefcase Blues, this new band. And he just picked up a gin and tonic and said, "Let me tell you about working with the Blues Bros." And he just spun stories for about 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And the upshot was, he shook my hand and he says, "Go for it, man. It was a gas while it lasted." And I took that to heart. And in the years since, I met Matt Guitar Murphy by phone. He was playing in the same city in Dallas that we were playing. Oh, he was playing at a friend of mine's club while we were playing downtown. And we left, my band members left notes on the door at Poor David's Pub saying, "Matt, call us. We're Briefcase Blues. We're downtown." And sticky notes and notes dropped through the mail slot and whatnot. So when I got done playing that night, we hadn't heard anything from him. And I just called up the club after I was off stage, and they put Matt on the phone. We talked for about half an hour. Also, we have signed agreements to work that they will work with us with Tom Bones, who is the music arranger for the whole band, and Murphy Dunn, the piano player from the movie. Both very nice guys. And they both said, anytime you want us to come and play and get the money, we'll come play with you.
I mean, some people won't even give you that, say, hey, I'll play with you even if you got the money. Some people will just say, no, don't even, I'm not even going to waste my time.
Yeah, well, see, the whole thing was Paul Schaefer said that the Blues Brothers was a tribute band in writing, in his autobiography. and really they were. They were a tribute to the blues. And that's
Right.
why our slogan, the one for the movie, was we're on a mission from God.
Right.
Well, rather than just remouth that, we changed it. Our slogan is the music is the mission.
I like that. Music is the mission. That's pretty deep.
Mm-hmm. I just cribbed it off the top of my head. It seems it also speaks to how much time we put into this thing, because a mission is never real missions are never completed. There's always something going on. There's more to do, right. And music is forever. So that's where I get that from. Music is the mission.
You were talking about Judge Reinhold didn't recognize you because you weren't dressed as Jake. Was there any like crazy stories you have dressed as Jake?
Some I won't admit to because I'm married. Okay. Yes. Well, you find it odd back in the 80s that some chick who looks like she's from Highland Park and beige and pearls wants to get it on with a guy who looks like he weighs 400 pounds. Okay, there's just because I look like Jake Blues. I had that problem a couple times. But no, being dressed as Jake Blues has gotten me to where I've been given honors and recognition that I would not have otherwise gotten, because I was being that character or appeared to look like that character. And in some cases, it gets me shut out of places. I was downtown at Victory Park doing a PR thing for BIG Dallas. I'm not sure what the acronym stands for, but it was the Dallas promotional thing about the city of Dallas, feel good about Dallas. And I just happened to wander across Victory Plaza and opened the door and walked onto the camera floor of the studios at WFAA Channel 8. I just walked in and looked around. They weren't live or anything. But the guy came over, one of the producers of the show, and said, okay, now, Jake, you got to go back outside. Okay, there you go. Very, very pandering. Going, there you go. Going out the door. Bye-bye, Mr. Blues. He had no idea who I was or what I did. But I looked like some nut dressed up as Jake Blues wandering into his studio. So
there was one story you told me about how you went up to a cop talking about how you needed your band members.
I'll try to shorten that story. It was the 80s. It was Lower Greenville Avenue. We were playing a nightclub. And a couple of guys went outside to catch a bit of air that wasn't entirely legal.
A bit of air.
Yes, a bit of air. It's like the British say, do a bit of breathing. And a Dallas cop car pulled up in the alley and saw them, and they made the mistake of actually running for the back door. Not just casually going like, hey, officer, or, be cool. They just turned and dropped their fresh air on the ground and actually ran into the back door. He caught them, all three of them, patted them down, was reading them the riot act. And I didn't know this was happening. But he walked them into the club, the walk of shame through the back door, with being led by a cop. And I saw this cop with my guys, and I didn't know what was going on. I said, excuse me, could you tell me what's going on here, officer? And he says, you don't need to know. You need to mind your own business. I just snapped. I went, hey, those are my guys. I'm responsible for them as well. They tell me what the hell's going on. And then it hit me right then that I was dressed as Jake Blues, and I was badass and a Dallas police officer, SWAT team officer. And all he did was look at me and stifle a laugh. And he said, "Never mind, talk to the manager of the club," and turned and walked out.
Since you've been in like the FBI and the bomb division, when you watch movies about bombs and stuff like that, you look at it and be like, that's not how that goes. That's not how that works. Because
Yeah.
I've had friends that were like that have been in sprinkler systems, and every time a sprinkler system would go off in the movie, he'd be like, that's not how it works. That water is way too clear.
So what's the question on that?
Like when you see like bomb movies, like say like Speed or something like that, you look like that's not how that works.
Yeah. Well, it's just in any walk of life. Anybody who does a job, usually the way it's portrayed in the movie isn't going to be exactly right. So, but you just take it as it is for entertainment. Yeah.
You know when people call you and they're basically scam calls,
Right.
on the phone. I love to answer those because I'll mess with them. I will screw with them. And one time a guy calls up and says he's from the Internal Revenue Service Bureau of America. Okay, a little wordy. And says that if you do not paid your taxes, there will be a policeman at your door within minutes to arrest you, with his thick accent like this. And I start going, "Oh no, the police are gonna come. What am I supposed to do?" I start playing an old man. And I finished it off by taking a paper bag over the phone. And then I just went, it made it sound like I'd shot myself. And when I picked up the phone next, he was gone.
I bet. That kind of reminds me of when I was a kid. I mean, I kind of feel bad about it now, but me and a friend, we were doing prank calls, and we called somebody with a terrible Jamaican accent, saying that they had won a trip to Jamaica and to meet a correspondent at the airport. And we could hear them packing their bags and all that. And we told them they had to be there within 4 hours. And they were packing their bags, and we were like, okay, we gave them like all legit information, and that was it. They packed their bag ready to go to the airport and meet nobody. And I felt so bad about it, but that's kind of what that reminded me of.
Oh yeah. Well, you turn their BS in the case of a scam call. You're turning their BS into reality.
You're wasting their time now.
Yeah, you waste my time. I got all the time in the world. I'll waste yours.
I wasn't ever much of a prankster that I can recall, at least nothing with any kind of amusing anecdote about it. Maybe it's been such a long time. I don't remember. My memory's not too good lately.
Well, did you pull any pranks in high school? Like,
nothing that I really think is all that amusing that anybody would want to hear a story about. But tell you what, as this thing goes along, if I think of one, I'll think really hard. If I think of funny one, I'll bust in and bring it up. But
okay. Well, I'm gonna tell Morgan one. This is for you, buddy, because you worked in, got an architecture degree, so you know what an art board is with a straight edge and a right triangle and all that stuff. Graphic art tools. I worked in the graphic arts department too once, and this guy had been bugging me, and he was messing with me. We were friends, but he was messing with me. So he went to lunch, and I took a tube of super glue and went over and super glued everything exactly as he'd left it on his desk. His knife, his X-Acto knife, his May line, his right triangle. I'd glued them down to the desk, even his coffee cup. And when he came back, he couldn't move anything on his desk, and he knew I did it. And stuff like that.
You're supposed to do stuff like that after they leave for the day. That way they come back the next day.
Yeah, let it cure overnight. You know,
Do y'all got any merch or anything?
actually, we're just about to trot out some T-shirts, some mugs, some tote bags, things of that nature. That's forthcoming here in the next couple of weeks.
This is the time to plug.
Uh-huh.
Well, plug time.
The short story is, look it up. It's briefcaseblues.com/store.
Okay.
And it's all there. And we haven't done a soft opening of it just yet. We just got the metrics behind it. So, but it'll be coming. It's just briefcaseblues.com. That's the one thing everybody wants to take away. That's our website, briefcaseblues.com. Plus, we're on Facebook and YouTube and Reverb Nation and all the rest.
I'll put those links in the description of the video and the audio version of it.
Great. And if you include the store, it's the same thing. Like I said, just /store.
Pretty much every link you sent me, I'll put up on the thing in the description.
Good deal.
Is there anything else y'all want to promote or plug? Shameless plug time.
Wow. Just our 2 shows. New Granbury Live. Granbury, Texas.
Full of non-shame.
June 5th. And Arlington Music Hall, Arlington, Texas, June 11th. Please.
And then forward into the future.
How much are the tickets for those shows?
Well, that's a good question. Depends on what section you sit in. Front row's kind of pricey, but then as you go further back, or different.
I think the absolute front rows are like, in both venues, are like top ends, like $35, something like that.
Okay.
It's a little more at Arlington Music Hall and at New Granbury Live for the primo seat, but overall the seats are extremely reasonable, and it's a good way to hear music because you're up close, you're in some nice, comfortable theater seating, and you got plenty of room. Safety's a big thing. They're spacing them out for a while, and then the sound is always good in those venues.
Okay. Anything else y'all need to plug? Just the 2 shows? How can people find y'all on the internet? The intranet.
The internet is still Briefcase Blues, all one word, I before E, briefcaseblues.com. That's been our website. That's been our handle since 1999 on the web, and Facebook /Briefcase Blues, all one word. And we also have a page called MBE Productions USA on Facebook. And that's the production company that actually does the nuts and bolts of what we do. Stage, light, sound, things of that nature, and video.
Well, I guess that's about it. I'm all out of questions.
Oh, okay. Well, the only question is, when are we going to see you at a show?
I'll try to make one of those shows.
And what were those dates?
June 11th and June 5th.
Good
So
man.
let's see. I will make sure you're paying attention. The interviewer's paying attention.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Thanks for your interest in Briefcase Blues, and we really appreciate.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. I had a blast talking about this. I don't really talk to too many people that actually like the Blues Brothers because we're kind of dying out of people who knows who the Blues Brothers is.
Right, few and far between. That's for sure.
All right.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Outdoor shows that are family oriented, we have kids that come all the way up to the front end of the stage when older people won't. So the image, I think it's like Men in Black with hats, kind of thing. And kids love it. Kids dance to it. We played at El Central College one time, and we had rap kids doing rap, out on the street that came inside the college to come listen to us.
Yeah, it's
It's
nice when you get people that do one thing and listen to just everything,
Mm-hmm.
because that means they're cultured.
Yeah, or they're picking
And
up
I
something
just
new.
don't-
Everything old is new again, and then if it's new to them, that's great. If it's old hat, that's great too. Just as long as they're having a good time.
Right. The funny thing is, my mom swears up and down she didn't say this, but she did. But she back in the day, she used to say, if I would have kept everything like when I was growing up, she said, if I kept everything from when I was growing up to y'all having it now, I would be a millionaire. I wish I would have listened to my mom about my stuff then, because my son was the same way about my stuff. And now the 90s stuff is starting to come back out. It's just retooling everything years later.
Mm-hmm. Well, it falls into one word: history, and things that are historically significant.
Two words. History, retro.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Can't have retro without history.
that's right. Well, I'll see y'all. Hopefully, I'll see y'all at one of those shows.
Okay.
Great, Aaron. Please let us know ahead of time so we can welcome you with the IP treatment.
All right, not a problem. I'll let y'all know.
And a message to all of your viewers that'll be seeing this: don't miss another show. We need people back in theaters. We need people back in music, and everybody needs to get back to having a good time.
Yeah, definitely, because just being cooped up it takes a toll on some people, and they do need some form of entertainment. And the blues is a good form of entertainment.
Yes, and it's more than blues. It's rock. It's almost folk.
Soul.
Some of the songs. It's soul. Yes, exactly.
Rhythm and blues.
Back to one of the things that I was saying about being cultured with different music. My son came out one time when I was listening to jazz. I want to say he was saying, and he was like, "Who are you? What have you done with my dad?" I was like, "I listen to this type of music." He's like, "No, you don't." I was like, "I listen to everything."
One time I was at a party in college, and somebody who was this intellectual type at this party, everybody was getting blind drunk, and he was going like, guess what? The other day I found this Leon Redbone album. And Leon Redbone, if you don't know who he is, look him up. He's terrific. But he's American folk.
He died a few years ago.
He did pass away? I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the guy was
He
like
also played
raping.
Frosty the Snowman, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Snowman in what was that? The Elf movie or something?
Elf. Yeah. He was the snowman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hilarious performer. And also would not have known about Leon Redbone without Saturday Night Live.
True.
Late 70s. Saturday Night Live. There you go.
And that's when I was in college, and this guy was going like, I saw this Leon Redbone album. I said, yes. So I looked it up. And that's when you hear things, you follow them, and you learn new things.
Yeah, you can't, because if you're just stuck in one hole, you're never gonna adventure, I guess you could say.
And I think it was St. Augustine who said that life is a journey, and people who do not travel in it read but one page. Music is also a journey, and if you stick to one genre of music, you don't go anywhere.
There you go. On that note,
That's right.
Beep, beep.
Thanks
right,
again, Aaron.
No problem. Y'all have a good one.
All right.
I
Man.
enjoyed
All right. Hey,
All
Morgan, I'll talk to you later.
Sounds
Aaron,
good.
thanks so much.
No problem. Y'all have a good one.
All right.
Thank you.
Catch you later, dudes.
Yeah. I'd like to put in a plug for the photographer that took that picture that's behind you on the wall there, on virtual wall. That's a guy named Chris Thornton, who's been a good friend of mine for over over 25 years.